Sabbath
gesegneten Sabbat
and good evening.
und guten Abend.
Let us begin with a prayer.
Lass uns mit Gebet anfangen.
Dear Father in heaven,
Lieber Vater im Himmel,
Lord, thank you for this new Sabbath.
Herr, danke für diesen neuen Sabbat.
And as we will worship you every Sabbath in eternity,
Und wie wir dich jeden Sabbat in der Ewigkeit anbeten werden.
so may we begin this true worship even today.
Mögen wir es sogar heute anfangen, so anzubeten.
And please therefore bless us this Sabbath.
Bitte segne uns deswegen diesen Sabbat.
Help us to learn what it means to keep it holy.
Hilf uns zu lernen, was es bedeutet, ihn heilig zu halten.
Help us therefore with our thoughts to set aside now all the worldly thoughts, cares and plans.
Hilf uns deswegen mit unseren Gedanken, dass wir alle Sorgen und weltlichen Nöte und Pläne beiseite legen.
That we would now focus upon heavenly spiritual things.
Und dass wir uns auf himmlische und geistliche Dinge fokussieren.
And that we would now be able to be the recipients of your blessings.
Und dass wir jetzt in der Lage sind, die Empfänger deiner Segnungen zu werden.
As we prepared today to confess all sins and now we can enter into your rest.
Und wie wir uns heute vorbereitet haben, unsere Sünden zu bekennen und jetzt in deine Ruhe eingehen zu können.
So please now bless your word
Bitte segne jetzt dein Wort
and may it strengthen us.
und möge es uns stärken.
And we ask and pray in Jesus' name.
Und wir bitten und beten in Jesu Namen.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so Brother Mark, he dealt with certain parables in the last few presentations.
In den letzten paar Vorträgen hat Bruder Mark mit bestimmten Gleichnissen gehandelt.
We looked at the laborers of the vineyard and the husbandman there in the vineyard and all these parables. Okay.
Wir haben uns die Arbeiter im Weinberg und auch diese Weingärtner im Weinberg angeschaut und all diese Gleichnisse.
These servants that are sent and all these things.
Und auch diese Knechte, die gesandt werden und all diese Gleichnisse eben.
And yesterday evening we also looked at the parable of the Pharisee and the publican again.
Und gestern Abend haben wir uns auch das Gleichnis vom Pharisäer und Zöllner nochmal angeschaut.
And this evening we want to again see once more how all these parables are just one parable.
Und heute Abend wollen wir nochmal sehen, wie all diese Gleichnisse eigentlich ein Gleichnis sind.
We looked at this already in the past studies, but I just want to refresh our memories how we can see this, okay?
In vergangenen Studien haben wir uns das schon mal angeschaut, aber ich möchte nochmal unsere Erinnerung auffrischen, wie man das sehen kann.
So let's turn in your Bibles, please, to Mark chapter 4.
Geht in euren Bibeln bitte zum Markus Kapitel 4.
And let us read verse 10 and verse 13.
Wir lesen Vers 10 und Vers 13.
Mark chapter 4, verse 10 and verse 13.
Markus 4, Vers 10 und Vers 13.
It says, And when he was alone, they that were about him with the 12 asked of him the parable. Verse 13.
Vers 13.
And he said unto them, Know ye not this parable? And how then will ye know all parables? Right? So if you don't understand one parable, you will not understand all the other parables. Okay?
Wenn du ein Gleichnis nicht verstehst, wirst du alle anderen Gleichnisse nicht verstehen,
Okay, because they're all interlinked.
weil sie alle miteinander verknüpft sind.
Good. So let's begin in Matthew 25,
Wir fangen in Matthäus 25 an,
verse 19 to 21.
Verse 19 bis 21.
That's this parable of the talents. Okay.
Das ist dieses Gleichnis der Talente.
It says, After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh, and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. So, what kind of servant is he?
Was für ein Knecht ist der?
Faithful.
Yeah. So it's
Ein
a
treuer Knecht.
good and faithful servant, right?
Ein guter und treuer Knecht.
So when the Lord now comes, he recompenses him. Okay.
Also wenn der Herr kommt, dann vergeltet er ihm.
So just keep your finger here. Let's go to one chapter earlier, to chapter 24.
Haltet euren Finger hier und geht ein Kapitel zuvor, also Kapitel 24.
And this speaks about also these two servants here. Okay.
Da spricht auch über diese zwei Knechte,
The good and the evil servant.
den guten und den bösen Knecht.
So let's read verse 45 to 47.
Lesen wir Vers 45 bis 47.
It says, "Who then is a faithful and wise servant?" What kind of a servant?
Was für ein Knecht?
Wise.
Faithful and wise.
Ein
Okay.
treuer und weiser Knecht.
So here with the talents, he was a good and faithful servant,
Bei
right?
den Talenten war er ein guter und treuer Knecht.
Here it's called a faithful and wise.
Hier
Okay.
wird er ein treuer und weiser Knecht genannt.
Whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household to give them meat in due season. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. So when did he give the man with the 5 talents the reward?
Wann hat er dem Mann mit den 5 Talenten seinen Lohn
In
gegeben?
the final review.
Yeah, when he came, right?
Bei der finalen Überprüfung, als er kam.
So it's the same servant, it's just explained in 2 different parables, right?
Also derselbe Knecht, aber in 2 verschiedenen Gleichnissen erklärt.
And when the Lord comes, he will receive his reward.
Und wenn der Herr kommt, dann wird er, also der Knecht, seinen Lohn erhalten.
Verse 47 it says,
Vers 47.
"Early I say unto you that he shall make him ruler over all his goods." So here it says he's made ruler over all the goods. In Matthew 25 it says, let's read verse 21 again.
Also hier sagt es, er wird Herrscher über all seine Güter gemacht. Und jetzt gehen wir nochmal zu Matthäus 25 und lesen
Verse 21.
Vers 21.
It says, "His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over
Many.
many things." Okay? "Enter thou into the joy of the Lord." So these many things he's made ruler over is these all his goods in Matthew 24. Right?
Diese vielen Dinge, über die er Herrscher gemacht wird, das sind eben alle seine Güter in Matthäus 24.
Okay. So we can see if he first gives us few goods, and if we are faithful, he will give us many goods or many things or all his goods.
Wir
Okay?
können also sehen, wenn wir treu sind, also er gibt uns erst wenig Güter und wenn wir treu sind damit, dann gibt er uns alle seine Güter oder ja, viele Dinge.
Yes. So we can see, you must be a good servant, a faithful servant, and a
Wise.
wise servant,
Wir
right?
können also sehen, wir müssen ein guter, ein treuer und ein weiser Knecht sein.
Okay, let's see where else we can see what it means to be wise. I mean, you obviously know the parable of the wise and foolish virgins, right?
Also lasst uns noch schauen, wo man weise sein muss. Also wir kennen natürlich das Gleichnis mit den weisen und törichten
But
Jungfrauen.
let's go also to Luke chapter 16.
Gehen wir aber auch zu Lukas 16.
Let's begin verse 8.
Wir fangen in Vers 8 an.
And this parable of the dishonest steward, okay,
Das ist das Gleichnis über diesen unehrlichen Verwalter.
who said, okay, who basically, maybe just read it, that we have it in our mind, okay.
Also wir lesen das nochmal, damit wir das wieder in Erinnerung haben.
Let's begin verse 1.
Fangen wir in Vers 1 an.
It says, "And he said also unto his disciples, There was a certain rich man, which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. And he called him and said unto him, How is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer steward." So, what is it now?
Was ist es jetzt?
You must give an account, right?
Du musst jetzt Rechenschaft geben.
So
What?
the final
Yeah, it's a final review, right?
Das ist die finale Überprüfung.
Because in Matthew 25, what did we read?
Weil in
With the
Matthäus
talents?
25, was haben wir gelesen bei den Talenten?
He reckoneth with them,
Er
right?
rechnet mit ihnen ab.
So he also wants an account from them.
Er
Okay,
möchte also auch eine Rechenschaft von ihnen haben.
okay, now verse 3.
Jetzt Vers 3.
Then the steward said within himself, What shall I do? For my Lord taketh away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig. To beg I'm ashamed. I am resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So he called every one of his lord's debtors unto him, and said unto the first, How much owest thou unto my lord? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, Take thy bill, sit down quickly, and write 50. Then said he to another, And how much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, Take thy bill, and write 80. And the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely.
Worldly wise.
For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much, and he that is unjust in the least is also unjust in much. Okay, so here we see this man wasn't commanded to be wise, right?
Also hier können wir sehen, dieser Mann wurde gelobt, dass er weise sei.
I mean, was he wise in a righteous sense?
War er weise im
No.
gerechten Sinne?
Yeah.
That's what it says. The children of this generation are wiser than the children of light.
Yeah.
So it was a worldly wise.
Yeah, I mean,
Es war eben eine weltliche Weisheit.
he was wise because he dealt according to worldly wisdom wisely, okay?
Also er war weise, weil er gemäß weltlicher Weisheit weise gehandelt hat.
Okay, but Jesus uses this to draw a contrast between the children of the world to the children of light, right?
Aber Jesus benutzt das, um einen Kontrast zu ziehen zwischen den Kindern der Welt und den Kindern des Lichts.
And he says basically the worldly people, they know how to deal with unrighteous mammon, to be benefited by it, okay?
Und er sagt also, die weltlichen Kinder, die wissen, oder die weltlichen Leute wissen, wie sie mit dem Mammon umgehen sollen, damit sie also Nutzen daraus ziehen können.
But it says here, then he says in verse 9,
Aber in Vers 9 sagt er,
and I say unto you, now he speaks to God's people, right? The children of light.
er
Okay?
spricht aber zu Gottes Volk in Vers 9, also die Kinder des Lichts.
Make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. So, who should be our friend?
Wer sollte unser Freund sein?
Christ, right?
Christus.
Okay, so Jesus says we should use the mammon of unrighteousness to make Christ our friend, right?
Also Christus sagt, wir sollten den Mammon der Ungerechtigkeit benutzen, um Christus zu unserem Freund zu machen.
How do we do this?
Und wie machen wir das?
Given him all.
Yeah, exactly.
Indem wir ihm alles geben.
Use your means to advance God's cause,
Dass
okay?
man seine Mittel benutzt, um Gottes also Werk zu unterstützen.
Okay, so therefore, when you do this, then you are a wise man, okay?
Wenn man das tut, dann ist man ein weiser Mann.
Yes?
Richtig.
Yeah, see this? Okay. So, therefore, in this sense, the Lord shows you, part to be wise is to use the temporal means to make Christ your friend. Okay.
Also da kann man also sehen, ein Teil davon weise zu sein, ist, dass man die zeitlichen Dinge nimmt, um Christus zu seinem Freund zu machen.
Okay. So, and if we bring it together with the other parables, the man with the 5 talents, he was a good and faithful steward, right, or servant. Okay.
Also wenn wir das zusammenbringen mit den anderen Gleichnissen, dann war ja der Mann mit den 5 Talenten ein guter und treuer Knecht.
But in the other parable, he was called a faithful and wise servant.
Aber
Okay.
im anderen Gleichnis wurde er ein treuer und weiser Knecht genannt.
Okay, so you need to be good, faithful, and wise servant. Okay.
Das ist also ein guter, treuer und weiser Knecht sein.
Part to be wise is to use your talents, right? Which is, among other things, your means to further God's cause. Okay.
Und Teil davon, weise zu sein, ist, dass du eben deine Talente benutzt, also auch die Mittel, um Gottes Werk voranzubringen.
Yes. Everybody follows?
Ja? Kann jeder folgen?
Okay. Because even though it didn't say with the servant of the talents that he was a wise servant, right?
Weil obwohl es bei dem Knecht mit den Talenten nicht gesagt hat, dass er ein weiser Knecht sei.
Only said he was a good and faithful servant, right?
Es hat nur gesagt, dass er ein guter und treuer Knecht
But
ist.
you must bring them all together, right?
Man muss sie alle zusammenbringen.
So he was also a wise servant.
Er war also auch ein weiser Knecht.
Therefore he used his means to further God's cause. He used his talents. Okay.
Er hat seine Mittel, also seine Talente benutzt, um Gottes Werk voranzubringen.
Okay, good. And then also let's go to Matthew 25, verse 1 and 2.
Gehen wir auch zu Matthäus 25, Verse 1 bis 2.
It says, "Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish." Let's read until 4.
Lesen wir doch bis Vers 4.
"They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps." Okay, so here the wise, what did they do? Why were they wise?
Warum waren sie weise? Was haben sie getan?
Yeah, they took oil, right?
Sie haben Öl genommen.
So they gathered the oil, okay?
Sie haben also das Öl gesammelt.
So to be in this group, you must apply your talents.
Also um in dieser Gruppe zu sein, musst du deine Talente anwenden.
How much of your talents?
Wie viel deine Talente?
How do we know that? All.
Alle. Woher wissen wir das?
Okay, but just based upon the parable itself.
Vom Gleichnis an sich, woher wissen wir das?
Christ gave them something and they had to give it all back.
Exactly.
Plus
Okay.
what they've
Yeah, they had to double everything they was given to them,
Also
right?
Christus hat ihnen was gegeben und sie mussten dann alles ihm doppelt zurückgeben, was er ihnen zuvor gegeben hat.
Had they only applied 4 talents, there was given 5, and he only applied 4, then he only would have returned 9 talents in total, right? Not 10. Okay.
Also wenn ihm wurden ja 5 Talente gegeben und hätte er nur 4 angewandt oder ja, ausgeübt, dann hätte er nur 9 Talente zurückgegeben
Not 10.
und nicht 10.
Everybody understands the math?
Versteht jeder die Mathe?
Okay. Hope so. Good. So apply all your talents. Then we saw with a steward, the unfaithful steward, apply all your means.
Also du sollst all deine Talente benutzen oder
Or
anwenden.
especially financial means.
Und bei dem Verwalter haben wir gesehen, sollst du all deine Mittel, also besonders finanzielle Mittel,
I mean,
benutzen.
the talents itself, they include financial means. This is what says it clearly, right?
Weil es sagt, dass die Talente,
Luke 19, it's money.
Mhm.
It's the same parable.
also dass die Talente die finanziellen Mittel mit einschließen. Und
Luke 19.
Lukas 19 ist dasselbe
Pounds, ja.
Gleichnis mit den Pfunden.
So, therefore, here this parable of the steward, dishonest steward, it's specifically speaking about the financial means. Here, the talents, they include also time, your abilities, and everything basically you possess. Okay.
Also dieses Gleichnis mit dem ungerechten Verwalter, das spricht jetzt nur über die finanziellen Mittel, aber das mit den Talenten, das spricht über alles, also deine Zeit und deine Fähigkeiten.
And everything you are and possess.
Alles, was du bist und besitzt.
Every influence you can bring into God's cause. Okay.
Jeden Einfluss, den du in Gottes Werk einbringen kannst.
Okay, so and in the parable of the virgins we saw you must gather oil. Okay.
Bei dem Gleichnis der Jungfrauen haben wir gesehen, dass man das Öl sammeln muss,
In order to be among the wise. Okay.
um unter den Weisen zu
So he
sein.
shows us what it requires of us in the final review to stand before him and receive the accommodation, the commendation. Thank you.
Also er zeigt uns, was wir dann in der finalen Überprüfung vorbringen müssen, damit wir sein Lob erhalten können.
Okay, these are the requirements.
Das sind die Forderungen.
Okay, let's go also to Matthew 7,
Gehen wir auch zu Matthäus 7,
verse 24 to 27.
Vers 24 bis 27.
It says, Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. So, how many classes here again?
Wie viele Klassen
Two.
sind da wieder?
Wise and foolish, right?
Weise und Törichte.
What differentiates them both?
Und was unterscheidet sie beide?
What they stand on. Do they stand on a rock or do they stand on sand, which is man's
Okay,
flesh?
yes.
Also stehen sie auf dem Felsen oder auf den Sand, also diese menschlichen, törichten Gedanken.
Yes, so yes, and the one is the group is the doer of the word, and the other is just only a hearer, right?
Also die einen sind dann Täter des Wortes und die anderen nur ein Hörer.
So both classes, they hear the word, but one allows it to influence their
Life.
life, and the other one, they just hear it and it doesn't really influence their life. Okay?
Beide Klassen hören das Wort und die einen erlauben, dass es einen Einfluss auf ihr Leben hat und die anderen, die hören es nur und es hat keinen Einfluss auf ihr Leben.
That shows us also what it means to gather the oil, right?
Das zeigt uns auch, was es bedeutet, das Öl zu sammeln.
Because the wise builder is the wise virgins. Okay?
Weil der weise Baumeister sind die weisen Jungfrauen.
Foolish virgins is the foolish builder,
Und
right?
die törichten Jungfrauen ist der törichte Baumeister.
So hearer plus doer of the word.
Also Hörer und Täter des Wortes.
And we discussed this, right? These parables first and foremost speak about born again people, okay?
Wir haben das schon besprochen, dass diese Gleichnisse, also in erster Linie, über neugeborene Leute spricht.
But in principle, you can also apply these things to us in the sense that you can hear it and think, okay, I don't care, okay?
Aber vom Prinzip her können wir das eben auch auf uns anwenden, also dass man das hören kann und dann aber zum Beispiel sagt, ich schere mich nicht drum.
I will do my own things,
Ich
okay?
werde meine eigenen Dinge tun.
Or you strive to obtain the obedience, right?
Oder du strebst danach, diesen Gehorsam zu erhalten.
Even though in our Romans 7 experience we many times will fail, okay?
Obwohl wir in unserer Römer 7 Erfahrung sehr oft versagen.
Okay, but it's the difference whether you follow your own plans or you really want to follow God's plan, right?
Es gibt einen Unterschied, ob du deine eigenen Pläne folgst oder wirklich Gottes Pläne folgen möchtest.
Okay, good, and confess when you fail, right?
Und das bekennst, wenn du versagst.
Good, now let's go also to Luke 12.
Jetzt gehen wir auch zu Lukas 12.
Because we read about these foolish virgins, we read about the foolish builder, okay?
Wir haben über die törichten Jungfrauen gelesen und den törichten Baumeister.
And now we want to look also at this foolish class, okay? We only look here now at this, so far at this wise class, okay?
Jetzt wollen wir uns auch die törichte Klasse anschauen. Soweit haben wir uns ja nur die weise Klasse angeschaut.
So Luke 12, 16 to 21.
Lukas 12, 16 bis 21.
It says, And he spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. What kind of man?
Was für ein Mann?
A rich man, right?
Ein reicher Mensch.
And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And he said, This will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, This night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. Okay, so what is this? He's called a fool, right?
wird hier ein Törichter genannt.
So he's a foolish builder, he's a foolish virgin, right?
Ist ein törichter Baumeister, eine törichte Jungfrau.
And why? What did he do? Or
Warum?
didn't do, rather?
Was hat nicht getan?
Yeah, he didn't lay up treasure for God, but for himself, right?
Hat nicht Schätze für Gott angelegt, sondern für sich selbst.
So he would be this opposite of applying a financial means for God's cause. He was using those things mainly for himself, right?
Das wäre jetzt das Gegenteil, dass man seine finanziellen Mittel für Gottes Werk einbringt, sondern er hat es für seine selbstsüchtigen eigenen Pläne gemacht.
Okay, and was trusting in his riches rather than in God's provision. Okay.
Er hat in seine Reichtümer vertraut, anstatt in Gottes Vorkehrungen.
And the parable opened with there was a certain rich man, right?
Und das Gleichnis, das wurde ja so eröffnet, dass es sagt, es gab einen gewissen reichen Mensch.
Where else do we find the same opening?
Wo finden wir diese selbe Einführung?
Where's another parable that begins similar? Okay.
Rich man last.
Luke 16, let's go there.
Yeah, the one we just read.
Yeah.
It is,
But the one we read about the dishonest steward,
yeah,
it's a different.
as I'm saying, it's the opposite way around.
Yes.
I thought that's what you were asking.
That was the rich one was Christ basically, right?
You-
But Luke 16, verse 19,
Also Lukas 16, Vers 19.
because here the rich man is obviously the wicked, okay?
Also hier ist der reiche Mann ein Böser.
And in Luke 16 also, okay?
Und in Lukas
Okay.
16 auch.
The rich man and the poor Lazarus, okay?
Also der reiche Mann und der arme Lazarus.
So Luke 16,
Lukas 16.
Luke 16. Mhm. Luke 16, verse 19.
Lukas 16 und Vers 19.
It says, there was a certain rich man, so here we have it, right?
Hier haben wir das.
Which was clothed in purple and fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died, and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus. So what is he asking for?
Und was bittet er?
Mercy, right?
Um Gnade.
But it's too late.
Aber es ist zu spät.
So he asked in the final review for mercy, and there's no mercy.
Er bittet in der finalen Überprüfung um Gnade, aber da gibt es keine Gnade mehr.
So have mercy on me and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. So what does he know?
Was ist er jetzt?
Tormented, right?
Gequält.
But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. So Lazarus would be the righteous class, right? He's now comforted, he is the comforter.
Lazarus wäre die gerechte Klasse, er wird nämlich jetzt getröstet, weil er hat den Tröster erhalten.
But he's tormented, okay?
Aber er wird gequält.
So he would be the wicked.
Er
Okay.
wäre die Bösen.
Okay, so why?
Und weshalb?
Let's go to Matthew 18.
Gehen wir zu Matthäus 18.
And let's just begin in verse 21.
Wir fangen Vers 21 an.
Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Yes, okay. Just to mention it, right? Because Peter, this is why it says, Peter thought that it was even much what he asked. 7 times he thought it was already a lot, okay?
Und Weit sagt hier über Petrus, dass er, als er gesagt hat, also soll ich 7-mal vergeben, dass das schon viel war, was er gesagt hat.
Because the Pharisees said 3 times.
Weil die
Okay.
Pharisäer haben gesagt 3-mal.
Okay. 3 strikes and you're out. Okay.
Also 3-mal und dann bist du raus.
Okay. But
Get that from somewhere?
yes. Okay. So and then until 7. But Jesus says until 7 times. 70 times 7. Okay.
Und Jesus hat aber gesagt 70 mal 7.
Okay. And if you just consider, if you would only forgive 7 times, a brother
We'd
would
all
be
done.
would not be possible to enter into heaven together, right?
Also wenn man das nur in Betracht zieht, wenn man einem Bruder nur 7-mal vergibt, dann wäre es für uns alle aus, könnten wir nicht in den Himmel kommen.
I mean, probably I forgave you all.
Couldn't even live together.
Yeah, if I forgave you already many times more than this, and you probably did likewise to me.
Also
Okay.
ich habe euch wahrscheinlich noch viel öfters vergeben und ihr auch mir.
Okay. So probably even more than 70 times 7. Okay.
Wahrscheinlich sogar noch mehr als 70 mal 7,
Okay. So if you would take it literally. Right?
wenn man es buchstäblich nehmen würde.
Okay, but it means just always. You have no right to hold anything, right?
Aber das
Against.
bedeutet natürlich immer, man hat kein Recht, jemals Groll zu hegen.
Okay. And then he says in verse 23.
Vers 23.
Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him which owed him 10,000 talents. But forasmuch as he had not to pay, his lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the lord of that servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him and forgave him the debt. But the same servant went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet, besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison, till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw that was done, or what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told unto their lord all that was done. Then his lord, after that he had called him, said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desirest me. Shouldest not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? And his lord was wroth, and delivered him to the tormentors, till he should pay all that was due unto him. So where was he delivered to?
Also wem wurde ausgeliefert?
To the tormentors.
Den Quälern.
Who else was tormented?
Wer wurde noch
Lazarus.
gequält?
No.
No.
So the rich man, sorry.
The rich man. Okay.
Der reiche Mann.
Okay. Why was the rich man tormented in the parable?
Und warum wurde der reiche Mann in dem Gleichnis gequält?
He didn't have the comfort. No, because he didn't provide for the poor Lazarus.
Exactly. Yeah.
Weil er hat sich nicht um den armen Lazarus gekümmert.
I mean, here it says in verse 33, right? Shouldest not thou also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, right?
Vers 33 sagt es, hättest du nicht auch Mitleid oder Erbarmen mit deinem Mitknecht haben sollen.
So the rich man, he had no compassion with Lazarus. He just ignored him and left him there in his misery. Okay.
Der reiche Mann hatte gar kein Mitleid mit Lazarus und hat ihn in seinem Elend einfach ignoriert und gelassen.
Physically and
And spiritually, yes.
Because he didn't provide for him physically because he despised him spiritually. That's the problem.
Also er hat sich nicht um ihn physisch gekümmert, weil er ihn auch geistlich verachtet hat.
So therefore it shows us, yeah, you will be among those and he was called a wicked servant, right?
Also er wurde dieser böse Knecht genannt.
So among the wicked, obviously you would be unfaithful, and we will see this I think later.
Also böse und untreu, das werden wir auch später noch lesen.
And foolish.
Und
Okay.
töricht.
So if you use your means selfishly,
Wenn du deine Mittel selbstsüchtig anwendest.
that's what we saw with the rich man that built this barn, right?
It's not an eye before the earth, please.
Excuse me?
It's not an eye before the earth.
Ah, yeah, thank you.
Also das hatten wir gesehen mit diesem Mann mit der Scheune.
And then so we had this rich man and Lazarus, so when you show no compassion, okay?
Und beim reichen Mann und Lazarus ist es, wenn man kein Mitleid zeigt.
Like this, okay. Shows no compassion and doesn't forgive, right?
Und vergibt nicht.
So holds things against others, okay?
Dass er Dinge gegen andere hält.
Okay, so and this what is probably the most famous parable about showing compassion.
Und was ist das berühmteste Gleichnis, dass man Mitleid zeigen soll?
Yeah, the Good Samaritan,
Der
right?
barmherzige Samariter.
So let's in Luke 10.
Das ist in Lukas 10.
So let's go to Luke 10.
Gehen wir zu Lukas 10.
Verse 30.
Vers 30.
It says, and Jesus answering said, a certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at that place, came and looked on him and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. So here we see he has compassion, right?
Hier sehen wir, hat er Erbarmen.
So he's the opposite of this
Oder
wicked servant in Matthew 18, right?
Das ist also das Gegenteil von dem bösen Mann in Lukas 16. Und das ist das Untersuchungsgericht.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he shows mercy, right?
Er zeigt Gnade.
And also if you just take it on a moral level, okay?
Und wenn man es auf moralischer Ebene betrachtet,
So the priest and the Levite, they just passed by, right?
der Priester und der Levit sind einfach vorbeigegangen.
Yeah, they just saw it and they said, oh, it's not my business. Okay.
Sie haben das gesehen und haben gesagt, das ist nicht meine Aufgabe.
Okay, and this is what we need to recognize. Yeah, when we see others especially in the movement, that have problems, do we just say, okay, I recognize this, but I don't. Not my problem, exactly.
Das
Okay.
müssen wir eben sehen. Also wenn wir Leute sehen, besonders in dieser Bewegung, die Probleme haben, ob wir dann sagen, das ist nicht mein Problem.
We just wish that we had never noticed this. Okay.
Dass wir uns einfach wünschen, das hätten wir nie bemerkt.
Okay. So, and therefore we need to have this feeling of responsibility for one another, because it was their own countrymen, Sister White says. Okay.
Deswegen wir müssen dieses Gefühl der Verantwortlichkeit füreinander haben, weil in White sagt, es war ihr eigener Landsmann.
So let's continue verse 34.
Lesen wir weiter in Vers 34.
And went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn and took care of him. So he gives him the message, right? He pours in the oil in the wine.
Er gibt ihm die Botschaft, er gießt Öl und Wein rein.
And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence. So what does it remind you of?
Und was erinnert euch das? 2 Pfennig.
Yeah, the widow woman, right?
Die Witwe.
So he gives all in order to help this even stranger, right?
Er gibt alles, um sogar diesem Fremdling zu helfen,
Because he was the Samaritan.
weil er war ein Samariter.
And gave them to the host, and said unto him, take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. It shows you, if you have true compassion, you're willing to give all to help a brother in need. Okay?
Es zeigt dir, also wenn du wahres Mitleid oder Erbarmen zeigst, dann wirst du alles geben, um einem Bruder in der Not zu helfen.
And especially it means not only physical need, but spiritual need, first and foremost.
Und
Okay?
das bedeutet besonders, also jetzt nicht nur diese physische Not, sondern besonders geistliche Not.
And because he poured in oil and wine, right?
Weil er hat Öl und Wein
So he gave
reingegossen.
the message.
Er hat also die Botschaft gegeben.
Okay. And now let's go to Matthew 25.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Matthäus 25.
Because there again we see the same thought.
Da sehen wir wieder denselben Gedanken.
Beginning in verse 31.
Wir fangen in Vers 31 an.
It says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on the right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer and sing, Lord, when saw we thee hungered, and so on and so forth. And then verse 40.
Jetzt Vers 40.
And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto me, of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Okay, so what did they do?
Was haben sie getan?
He provided physical needs for the person, but they also healed their spiritual needs.
Mhm.
Because these are spiritual
Things. Yes.
Sie haben physische und
prison, for instance.
geistliche Nöte abgedeckt.
They loosed them.
Yes,
from
exactly.
bondage.
Yeah, so they were naked, meaning they were sinners, and they gave them the robe of righteousness,
Sie
right?
waren zum Beispiel nackt, das bedeutet, dass sie Sünder waren und sie haben ihnen das Gewand der Gerechtigkeit gegeben.
So sick, and they were visited. So sick is also a sinner, right?
Und
Yes,
Krankheit
James 5.
bedeutet eben, dass man ein Sünder ist, Jakobus 5.
Yes, okay. But obviously, not only the spiritual is enough, but you also should do this physical, right?
Natürlich nicht nur das Geistliche, sondern ist genug, sondern du musst auch das Physische geben.
So, for instance, yeah, you hear of somebody in this movement, this person is now sick, okay?
Zum Beispiel hörst du von einer Person in der Bewegung, dass sie krank ist.
Do you take care of this person? Do you show some interest, at least say, okay, listen, I'm praying for you, just encouraging this person to go forward.
Also sorgst du dich um die Person und zeigst Interesse und sagst zum Beispiel, dass du für ihn betest und
That's the least you can do, right? You can say, okay, I'm praying for you. Okay.
also das ist das Wenigste, was du tun kannst, dass du sagst, dass du für ihn betest.
So if you have, let's say, only one talent given to you by God, how to deal with sicknesses, yeah, that's, for instance, one thing you can do, okay?
Also wenn du nur ein Talent hast von Gott, wie man mit Krankheiten umgeht, dann ist das zumindest, was du tun kannst.
Yeah. But if you have more talents, think like you have certain education, yeah, or you know how to treat this, you obviously are required to bring this to the person, okay?
Und wenn du mehr Talente hast, zum Beispiel eine besondere Bildung, dann weißt du, wie man das zum Beispiel behandeln kann, dann bist du auch gefordert, noch das dazu zu bringen.
Okay. Naked and you clothe me. So if somebody is now suddenly waxing poor here among us, okay,
Also, dass
in this movement,
man
okay.
nackt ist und man ihn bekleidet. Und wenn jetzt jemand in dieser Bewegung zum Beispiel arm wird,
Do you just are you like the priest and the Levite just passing by and say, yeah, okay, not my business, okay?
bist du dann wie der Priester und der Levit und gehst an der anderen Seite vorüber und sagst, das ist nicht mein Problem.
Or do you also take interest in it and say, Lord, how can I help this person? Okay.
Da zeigst du auch Interesse und fragst, wie Herr kann ich helfen?
And depending on how much talents you have in this field, do you then apply these talents, okay, to help out this brother or sister?
Und abhängig davon, wie viele Talente du in diesem Feld hast, wendest du sie dann auch darauf an, diesem Bruder oder Schwester zu helfen.
And the least thing you can do again is to say, okay, I noticed your case, you have a problem, I will pray for you.
Und
Okay.
das Mindeste, was du tun kannst in diesem Fall, ist, dass du dann sagen kannst, ja, ich habe gehört, dass du da ein Problem hast, ich werde dafür beten.
So, but many times we can even do more than just praying for persons. Okay.
Aber sehr oft können wir noch mehr tun, als nur für Personen beten.
We can maybe give them certain advice or knowing, I know a person that can help you out or whatever. Okay?
Wir können dann also einen Rat geben oder sagen, ich kenne eine Person, die dir dabei helfen könnte oder was auch immer.
And the same thing is when you apply these things spiritually, right?
Dasselbe ist, wenn du es geistlich anwendest.
You realize, oh, somebody has a sin problem there you know of. It's not just, okay, it's not my business. I just leave this person struggling there.
Also wenn du erkennst, dass jemand ein Sündenproblem hat, dann ist es nicht, dass du das einfach ignorierst und sagst, ich werde jetzt diese Person allein kämpfen lassen.
Yeah. You begin to pray for this person, right?
Und du fängst an, für diese Person zu beten.
And depending on the situation, you can also then offer help, depending on what kind of sin this is and all these things. Okay?
Und abhängig von der Situation kannst du dann noch Hilfe anbieten, also je nachdem, was für eine Art Sünde es ist.
Or you can ask this person, notice this, can maybe know somebody that can help you with this, and all these things. Okay?
Du kannst dann zu der Person sagen, ich habe gemerkt, dass du da ein Problem hast und ich kenne jemanden, der dir zum Beispiel dabei helfen kann oder und so weiter.
So therefore, these things do we take care of one another? Okay, this is practical religion. Okay.
Also da können wir sehen, da geht es darum, ob wir uns umeinander kümmern. Das ist praktische Religion.
Okay, and this is what the Lord requires of us. Okay.
Das fordert der Herr von uns.
So, this would then make us either wise or foolish. Okay.
Das macht uns entweder weise oder töricht.
Okay, so if we go now to Luke 11.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Lukas 11.
Because we just read, I was hungry and you fed me. Okay.
Weil wir haben gerade gelesen, ich war hungrig und ihr habt mich gespeist.
Luke 11, verse 5 to 8.
Lukas 11, Verse 5 bis 8.
Because both the physical and the spiritual food comes from God, right?
Weil sowohl geistliche als auch physische Nahrung kommt von Gott.
And this is what He gives us in order to bless others.
Und das gibt er uns, um andere zu segnen.
And especially those of our own household, of our brethren. Okay.
Besonders die unseres eigenen Haushaltes, also unsere eigenen Geschwister.
It says Luke 11, verse 5 to 8. It says,
Lukas 11, Vers 5 bis 8.
And he said unto them, Which of you shall have a friend, and shall go up unto him at midnight, and say unto him, Friend, lend me 3 loaves. For a friend of mine is in his journey, is come to me, and I have nothing to set before him. And he from within shall answer and say, Trouble me not, the door is now shut, and my children are with me in bed. I cannot rise and give thee. I say unto you, though he will not rise and give him, because he is his friend, yet because of his importunity he will rise and give him as many as he needeth. So here's also somebody who realizes, I need now the bread from heaven to feed my friend that now came and is needy. Right?
Also hier ist auch jemand, der erkennt, dass er das Brot vom Himmel braucht, weil er muss seinen Freund speisen, der in Not ist.
And he now wrestles with the Lord to obtain this bread. Okay?
Und er ringt mit dem Herrn, um dieses Brot zu erhalten.
Centurion, he exercised faith for his servant. It's the exact same thing. He wrestled with the Lord that the Lord would
bless his servant.
Bless his servant.
Yes.
So wie
It's an unselfish prayer.
Das ist so wie dieser Hauptmann, der dann mit Jesus gerungen hat, damit der Knecht geheilt werden konnte. Und er hat also selbstlos gehandelt.
Yes. So, prayed unselfish. Right?
Er hat selbstlos gebetet.
Called Hauptmann in German. Hauptmann just means captain, right? And that's centurion is not a
A centurion is a Hauptmann, captain.
Hauptmann is lieutenant or something like that. But the
centurion.
centurion is
Centurion is totally different.
Okay, so we can see also his friend, he was naked and he now wrestled to give him the bread to be. He was hungry and he wrestled to give him the bread to be fed.
Also hier können wir sehen, sein Freund, der war hungrig und er hat mit Gott gerungen, damit er ihm das Brot geben kann, was ihn speisen will.
Okay, and he was importunate, it says, right?
Und er war aufdringlich, sagt es.
And where's the other parable with this importunate prayer?
Wo gibt es noch ein anderes Gleichnis mit diesem aufdringlichen Gebet?
Yeah, the widow woman, right?
Diese Witwe.
So let's go to Luke 18.
Gehen wir zu Lukas 18.
And verse 1.
Und Vers 1.
It says, And he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men ought always to pray and not to faint, saying, There was in a city a judge which feared not God, neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, Avenge me of mine adversary. And he would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, Though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. Okay, so she was here wrestling, not only with the Lord for bread, but she was also wrestling against her adversary, right?
Sie hat hier nicht nur gerungen mit Gott um Brot, sondern gegen ihren Widersacher.
So that's what we need to understand. So we will wrestle with the Lord to obtain the message, to feed the hungry, right?
Also wir müssen das verstehen, wir müssen mit dem Herrn ringen, damit wir die Botschaft erhalten, um die Hungrigen zu speisen.
But at the same time we must wrestle also against Satan, who wants to keep us from obtaining this bread.
Aber
Okay?
zur selben Zeit müssen wir also ringen, weil Satan möchte uns eben in dieser Knechtschaft halten, dass wir nicht dieses Brot erhalten.
Yes. Okay, so in verse 6 to 8.
Verse 6 bis 8.
And the Lord said, Hear what the unjust judge saith, and shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he bear long with them? And I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. How will he avenge them?
Wie wird ihn rächen?
Speedily.
Schnell.
Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? So when he cometh, he will reckon with them, right?
Wenn kommt, wird mit ihnen abrechnen.
Okay.
He was faithful.
Yes.
Ob treu war oder nicht.
Exactly, right? You're faithful when you have faith, okay?
Du bist treu, wenn du Glauben hast.
Okay, so, and it says he will avenge them speedily. Okay?
Also es sagt, dass ihn schnell rächen wird.
And there was this adversary that against whom she needed to be avenged. Okay?
Also es gab diesen Widersacher, von der, also
Gegen den sie gerecht werden musste.
gegen den sie gerecht werden musste.
Okay, in verse chapter 24,
Und Kapitel 24
let's see who this adversary is. Okay?
schauen wir, wer dieser Widersacher ist.
Verse 48 to 51.
Vers 48 bis Lukas 24.
Matthew 24.
Matthäus.
Did I say Luke's son?
You said it was chapter 24.
Matthew 24, verse 48 to 51.
Matthäus 24, Vers 48 bis 51.
But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming. What does he say?
Was sagt er?
Yeah. Delays his coming, right?
Mein Herr verzögert sein Kommen.
But what did we just read in Luke 18?
He comes speedily.
Yeah, he will avenge you speedily.
Aber in
Okay.
Lukas 18 haben wir gelesen, er wird uns schnell rächen.
Okay, so therefore he's having not his understanding correct, right, of prophecy.
Er hat also kein richtiges Verständnis oder glaubt nicht der Prophetie.
So he was not gathering the oil as he should.
Er hat nicht das Öl gesammelt, wie er sollte.
So then therefore in verse 49,
Deswegen Vers 49.
and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken. So what does he do? He smites now his fellow servants, right?
Also er schlägt jetzt seine Mitknechte.
He smites this widow woman,
Er
okay?
schlägt jetzt diese Witwe.
And turns to those that are preaching false truths, false messages.
Exactly.
Wendet sich zu denen, die eine falsche Botschaft predigen.
Because he eats and drinks with the drunken.
Weil er isst und trinkt mit den Betrunkenen.
Okay, but the point I want to make is he smites his fellow servants. That's the widow woman, so he is the adversary of this widow, okay?
Also der Punkt, den ich machen möchte, er schlägt ihm seine Mitknechte, deswegen er ist dieser Widersacher der Witwe.
We looked at this. 2 men went up to the temple to pray.
Wir haben uns das angeschaut, 2 Männer gingen in den Tempel, um zu beten.
2 classes of worshippers, right?
2 Klassen der Anbeter.
And Sis White compared them with?
Und Ellen White hat sie mit wem verglichen?
Who were the first representation of the 2 classes?
Wer waren die erste Darstellung
Cain and Abel,
der
right?
2 Klassen? Kain und Abel.
What did Cain do to Abel?
Was hat Kain mit Abel getan?
Slew him, right?
Er hat ihn erschlagen.
So he is the adversary,
Er
okay?
ist der Widersacher.
So it's the own familiar friend, right?
Das ist der eigene vertraute Freund.
Okay. So and therefore it says in verse 50,
Und deswegen in Vers 50 sagt es,
the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, because he comes speedily and not delay of his coming, right?
Weil er kommt schnell und er verzögert nicht sein Kommen.
And in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So when he's punished, what shall there be?
Wenn er bestraft wird, was wird sein?
Weeping and gnashing of teeth, right?
Heulen und Zähneknirschen.
So therefore, when you're among this wicked, you will smite your fellow servants.
Wenn du unter den Bösen bist, wirst du deine Mitknechte erschlagen.
And servants. You're this adversary. And what does the adversary do?
Du bist der Widersacher und was macht der Widersacher?
Accuses.
Accuses, right?
Ja.
Puts you before the
Klagt an.
judges.
Yes, exactly.
Und
Okay.
bringt dich vor die
So
Richter.
the smiting is this accusing. Okay.
Dieses Schlagen ist dieses Anklagen.
And yeah, we can read this also. I mean, let's go to Mark 13.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Markus 13.
Mark 13, verse 9.
Markus 13, Vers 9.
It says, "But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to the council." Who's they?
Wer sind sie?
Yeah,
Unfaithful.
those ones, right?
Die hier.
And because this is why it says the nominal Adventist and nominal churches will deliver you up like Judas, right?
Im Wald sagt die nominellen Kirchen und die nominellen Adventisten werden dich wie Judas ausliefern.
Okay.
That's from eating and drinking with the drunken.
Yes.
Sie essen und trinken mit dem Betrunken.
So for they shall deliver you up to the councils, and in the synagogues you shall be beaten. What will they do to you?
Was werden sie mit dir tun?
Smite you, right?
Dich schlagen.
And ye shall be brought before rulers and kings for my name's sake, for testimony against them. Okay, so now let's go to Matthew 25.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Matthäus 25.
Verse 26.
Vers 26.
Because we saw this wicked, or this evil servant it was called, okay?
Weil wir haben gesehen, dieser böse Knecht,
He was cut asunder and then was put where there was weeping and gnashing of teeth, right?
er wurde in zwei gehauen und dann dorthin geworfen, wo Heulen und Zähneknirschen war.
You know, in Matthew 25, verse 26,
Jetzt Matthäus 25, Vers 26.
his Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. Okay, so how is he called?
Wie wird er genannt?
Slothful. Wicked.
Wicked and slothful, okay.
Gottlos oder böser und fauler Knecht.
And he's slothful because he had a certain view of God. I mean, even though he had a wrong understanding of God, this is what it clearly says, okay?
Also er war faul und weil er ein bestimmtes Ansicht über Gott,
Obwohl er
eine falsche Ansicht über Gott hatte.
he still, he thought, okay, the Lord will exact of me. That's what was his view of God, right?
Also da hat er gedacht, dass der Herr ihn überfordert.
He will be sehr streng mit ihm abrechnen wird.
Dass der Herr sehr streng mit ihm abrechnen wird.
And even though he knew this or had this in his mind, he was still not applying his talents, okay?
Und obwohl er das wusste oder das in seinem Denken hatte, hat er nicht seine Talente eingesetzt.
Made him even more guilty, okay?
Und hat ihn sich noch schuldiger gemacht.
Okay, in verse 30.
Vers 30.
It says, And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So what happens to him?
Was passiert mit ihm?
Cast into outer darkness, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, right?
Wurde in äußerste Finsternis geworfen und dort wird Heulen und Zähneknirschen sein.
So therefore he's this evil servant that was cut asunder and had his portion with the hypocrites, right?
Deswegen erst dieser böse Knecht, der in zwei gehauen wurde und deren Teil mit den Heuchlern gegeben wurde.
Because they had also said there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Weil dort hat es auch gesagt, es wird Heulen und Zähneknirschen sein.
Okay, so, and you could go on now and on and all the other parallels to it, okay?
Man könnte jetzt noch weiter und weiter gehen und all die anderen Gleichnisse
But,
darüber legen.
time is now up, unfortunately.
Aber leider ist unsere Zeit jetzt schon vorbei.
But we can see, okay, already through these parables, the conditions that the Lord lays down in order to be among this group, okay?
Wir können aber schon sehen, durch diese Gleichnisse legt der Herr uns die Bedingungen dar, damit man unter dieser Gruppe sein kann.
And what we need to avoid in order to end up in this group, okay?
Was wir vermeiden müssen, damit wir nicht in dieser Gruppe enden.
Yes. So, therefore, there's obviously much more that I didn't list now in this study, okay?
Es gibt natürlich noch viel mehr, was ich nicht in diesem Studium aufgeschrieben habe.
But you can go through these parables yourself and you can study out these details. Okay?
Aber ihr könnt für euch selbst durch diese Gleichnisse gehen und die Details ausstudieren.
But we can see is like it's all about applying what you hear, okay?
Aber ihr könnt sehen, es geht immer darum, dass man das anwendet, was man hört.
And the Lord says you need to be a servant, meaning you need to have care for others,
Der
okay?
Herr sagt, dass man ein Knecht sein soll, dass man sich um andere sorgt.
And therefore our hearts are naturally selfish, okay?
Oder ein Diener und unsere Herzen sind von Natur aus selbstsüchtig.
And therefore we obviously need to pray that the Lord shows us the needs of others,
Und
okay?
deswegen müssen wir beten, dass der Herr uns die Bedürfnisse anderer zeigt.
And and the sickness that we have is always to look outside, right? But we need to learn to start with what is next to us, okay?
Und die Krankheit, die wir haben, ist, dass wir immer außerhalb hinschauen und suchen, aber wir müssen hier unter uns anfangen.
Amen?
Amen.
Okay. So, then let's take these thoughts, okay?
Lasst uns diese Gedanken mitnehmen
And let us close with a prayer round.
und mit unserer Gebetsrunde abschließen.